Life under someone else's roof was never easy. I learned that lesson every single day in the Song family's cramped courtyard. I stood by the door of the woodshed, watching my step-grandmother, Old Lady Lei, pin my older sister, Song Lu, to the ground. My mother, Tang Shi, stood by trembling as the old woman threatened her. "Tie her up," Old Lady Lei barked, her voice dripping with malice. "Song Lu, whether you like it or not, you're marrying into the Rin family today. Try to run, and I'll break your legs." I had just returned from the edge of the village, carrying a heavy bag of water. On my way back, I saw a bullock cart heading toward our house. 2 people led it, wearing decent clothes without a single patch. The older woman in front looked stern and powerful, but it was the cart behind her that caught everyone's eye. It was piled high with grain. I hurried home, only to hear those cruel words coming from the shed. I dropped my load and rushed inside. My sister was bound hand and foot on the dirt floor, sobbing. "Mother, I'm your daughter," Song Lu wailed, looking at Tang Shi. "I won't marry the Rin family's fool. They say he's crazy. Please help me." My mother just wiped her tears. She was a widow who had brought us 2 girls into the Song family when she remarried. She had eventually given the Songs a son, which was the only reason we hadn't been kicked out to starve in a ditch years ago. Old Lady Lei let out a cold laugh, the wrinkles on her face twitching. "If I raised 2 pigs, I could at least slaughter them for meat. If you don't marry him, where will we get the grain to survive the winter?" Song Lu looked at our mother with pure desperation. I knew what she was thinking. Between the 2 of us, Mother had always favored her. Why was she being forced away instead of me? I thought of the grain on that cart. The Rin family was already here. I stepped forward, trying to save my sister. "Grandmother, please don't force her," I pleaded. "We'll work harder. We'll be worth more than a pig, I promise." I was the one who did all the work and ate the least, but seeing my sister like this hurt my heart. Old Lady Lei turned her glare on me. "If she doesn't go, will you go instead?" she snapped. "Yes, let her go," Song Lu shouted instantly. She didn't care about me. She just wanted out. "No." Mother cut in, her voice sharp. "It has to be Song Lu." They didn't understand Mother's true plan. She knew one daughter could buy a cart of grain, but that grain wouldn't last the whole winter. She had already talked to a matchmaker to sell me to a brothel later. She wanted Song Lu to have a proper marriage, even to a fool, to save her from that fate. But Mother couldn't say that out loud. She just held Song Lu down and covered her mouth. I leaned against the doorframe and looked Old Lady Lei in the eye. "Fine, I'll take her place. I'll marry into the Rin family." The old woman studied me. I was 16, 2 years younger than Song Lu, and much thinner. I looked malnourished compared to my sister's developed figure. But Old Lady Lei's eyes gleamed. If I went to the Rin family, she could sell the prettier sister to the brothel for an even higher price. "Deal," Old Lady Lei said. "You said it yourself." Mother tried to protest, but the old woman shoved her aside. As soon as the ropes were off, Song Lu hugged me, thanking me profusely for taking her place. I looked at my mother with a cold, distant gaze. "Why do you use us to please grandmother?" I asked. "Are we not your children too, just like our brother?" Mother was furious that I had ruined her plan for Song Lu. She raised her hand to slap me, but I didn't flinch. I caught her wrist midair. I wasn't the weak, submissive girl I used to be. "Grandmother already agreed," I said, my voice steady. "If you kill me now, you lose that cart of grain. Grandmother won't forgive you for that. You'd sacrifice both your daughters just to stay in this house. You don't deserve to be a mother." My words stung her. She couldn't wrestle her arm away from my grip. She let out a frustrated growl. "If I hadn't remarried, you'd be dead by the road," she screamed. "There's a drought. People are eating tree bark. You should be grateful you're alive. It's time you paid me back." Mother only cared about her son. To her, daughters were just currency. She tried to grab Song Lu to hide her away, hoping to lock me in the shed and fix the mistake, but it was too late. The Rin family's cart had arrived at our gate. I bolted out of the shed before she could stop me. Song Lu stayed hidden, terrified of the rumors that the Rin family's son bit people until they got sick. The matchmaker, a well-dressed woman who looked years younger than my mother despite being the same age, frowned when she saw me. She didn't look at my face, she looked at my frame, checking if I was built for childbearing. "We asked for the elder daughter," the matchmaker said, shaking her head. "This one is too thin." Old lady Lei rushed over, her eyes locked on the grain. She pushed me forward. The Rin family has plenty of food. Feed her for a few days, and she'll look just like her sister. They have the same mother. She'll be just as good. Just then, Song Lu's voice drifted out from the house. I'm not marrying him. I'd rather die than marry that biting fool. The matchmaker sighed, looking at my determined face and then back at the grain. The deal was struck. I was leaving this house, one way or another. The matchmaker's face twisted in anger. Publicly bringing up the rumors about her son's biting was a low blow. My grandmother, old lady Lei, saw the deal slipping away and glared at my mother. Mom quickly clamped her hand over Song Lu's mouth, but the damage was done. Song Lu's outburst actually worked in my favor. It made the matchmaker change her mind. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing as she tested me. Try calling me mother, she challenged. I didn't hesitate. Mother, I said clearly. That one word moved her. She saw a girl who knew how to adapt, someone far smarter and more practical than my screaming sister. Fine, she declared. This is the one. She nodded to her eldest son. He immediately began unloading the grain from the cart. For the first time, the Song family really looked at him. He was about 20, well-built and strong, with clean features that set him apart from the usual rough village boys. He looked nothing like a typical peasant. It was clear the Rin family from Shuexiang village lived well. I figured if the eldest brother looked this good, maybe the fool wouldn't be so bad to look at either. But a fool was still a fool. If my future husband looked anything like this brother, Song Lu would have been fighting me to marry him. Old lady Lei, ever shameless, stepped forward with a greedy smile. The eldest son is a fine man, she simpered. Does he need a concubine? The matchmaker let out a sharp, mocking laugh. She looked at my grandmother with pure disdain. The Rin men aren't allowed to take concubines. It's a family rule. What kind of rule is that? Grandma grumbled. She actually looked disappointed. I bet she was thinking that if she could trade me for a cart of grain, she could trade someone else to the eldest son for another cart. With 2 carts, the Song family would be set for winter. The eldest son, Rin Guangtian, looked uncomfortable under Grandma's predatory gaze. He finished unloading the grain as fast as he could and climbed back onto the ox cart, clearly wanting to leave this place behind. Just as I was about to climb up, a small figure bolted out of the house. A pair of tiny arms wrapped around my waist like a cannonball. Second sister, you can't go. I won't let you. It was my 5-year-old brother. He was the only person in this entire house I actually cared about. When I was starving and close to fainting, he was the one who would secretly sneak bits of his own food into my mouth. I didn't expect anyone to cry for me, but his tears gave me a small sense of comfort. I touched his forehead, trying to find the words to comfort him, but old lady Lei snatched him away. To her, this boy was the precious grandson, the golden child. He shouldn't be wasting his time on a girl who was already sold. When you get to the Rin house, listen to your mother-in-law. Grandma barked at me as a final parting. If you're lazy and they kick you out, I'll break your legs. I turned away and didn't look back. I had lived in that yard for 6 years, but as the cart pulled away, I only looked at my crying brother. Everyone else was dead to me. The village road was bumpy, the hard stones poking through the dirt after years of rain and wind. It was autumn, and Shurtu village looked bleak and lifeless under the cold wind. I sat on the cart, watching the thatched huts recede. The only sound was the rhythmic creaking of the wooden wheels. I felt strangely calm. As we passed through the village, people poked their heads out to gossip. Everyone knew the Rin family was wealthy. They had 3 sons. The first 2 were married, but the youngest was a fool. He had been engaged 3 times in 3 years, and every time, the girl had died before the wedding. Now, they weren't even bothering with an engagement. They just traded a cart of grain for the Song family's second daughter. In this time of famine, even a fool's wife was a position people envied. Some villagers looked at me with jealousy, wishing their own daughters were pretty enough for the matchmaker to pick. I didn't know what kind of fate waited for me, but the eldest brother seemed kind, and the mother-in-law wasn't as stern as she first appeared. On the road, she started asking me about farm work. Ever since I survived a deadly fever years ago, I had developed a strange sense. If I stood close to someone, I could feel what they were thinking. Back in the shed, I had felt my mother's cold resolve to sell me to a brothel just to keep Song Lu safe. That was why I had jumped at the chance to marry into the Rin family. I can do everything, I told my mother-in-law. I can chop wood, cut grass, clean the pig pens, cook, and herd cattle. I haven't worked the fields much because my family didn't have land, but I'm not stupid. I can learn. The matchmaker's expression softened. She actually looked relieved. I wasn't fully grown yet, but I wasn't lazy. She clearly preferred a daughter-in-law who would work quietly over one who caused trouble. When we reached the Rin family compound in Shuexiang village, I gasped. The gate was wide enough for 2 carts. The walls were high, and the house was made of solid brick and tile. Compared to the mud walls and thatched roofs of my old village, this place looked like a fortress. I froze at the entrance, unsure if I was allowed to step inside. "This is your home now," Mother Rin said kindly. Come in, little sister," Rin Guangtian added as he unhitched the ox. "We're family now." I stepped into the yard. 2 women came out of the house, the wives of the first and second sons. Their clothes had patches, but the fabric was good. To me, they looked like they were wearing brand new outfits. I had spent my whole life wearing loose, tattered hand-me-downs. I realized then that I truly wanted to stay here. I wanted this life, and Mother Rin told the sisters-in-law to find some decent clothes for me. They grumbled a bit, but went to check their rooms. I didn't wait to be asked. I followed Mother Rin into the kitchen and immediately started helping with the fire and the prep work. She watched me with a satisfied smile. The Rin family wasn't as rich as the rumors suggested. Giving up a whole cart of grain had been a sacrifice. They needed a wife for the 3rd son because he had been injured while hunting and needed someone to care for him. They were even selling their hens to make ends meet for the winter. Soon, the smell of flower drop soup filled the kitchen. Because I was new, Mother Rin even cracked 2 precious eggs into the pot. I was starving, but I kept my eyes down and didn't stare at the food. Just then, the father of the house, Rin Ping, rushed back into the yard. He had left that morning to sell 30 hens, but he was carrying them all back. He looked flushed and agitated. He didn't even stop to explain. He just grabbed Mother Rin and pulled her into the back room. Something was very wrong. Old Man Rin pulled a delicate silver pouch from his sleeve and showed it to Mother Rin. He looked baffled. He told her he had been trying to sell the chickens in the west of the city when a carriage passed by. A lady inside just tossed the silver pouch at him. She told him she didn't want it and that it was all his. He tried to chase her down to return it, but she ignored him completely. Fearing the attention, he had hurried home with the chickens. In this season of famine, someone giving away money for no reason was unheard of. The embroidery on the pouch was exquisite, clearly the work of a wealthy family. When they opened it, they found 2 silver ingots. Each was stamped with its weight, 10 taels. 20 taels of silver in total. They stood there, stunned. In these surrounding villages, the Rins were considered well off, but seeing even 2 taels of hard cash in a year was rare. 20 taels was a fortune they had never laid eyes on. Just then, the second son, Rin Guangjiang, came rushing into the yard from the mountain. Villagers working in the fields stared as he sprinted past. He was carrying a basket full of wild rabbits. People were shocked. No one believed there was still wild game in the mountains this time of year. Besides, the 3rd son was the hunter, and he was bedridden. Guangjiang was known for cutting wood, not hunting. Guangjiang was too excited to care about the neighbors. He burst through the gate yelling for his mother. Mother Rin quickly tucked the silver into her robe and ran out, thinking something terrible had happened. Before she could scold him, he thrust the basket of rabbits toward her. He panted, telling her about the strange luck he'd had. While cutting wood, he had stumbled upon 2 rabbit burrows hidden in the tall grass. He even found a nest of wild pheasant eggs nearby, but didn't have enough hands to carry them. He told his wife and the eldest sister-in-law to grab a mule and follow him back up. He had seen plenty of mushrooms in that patch of woods too. Mother Rin felt like the heavens were smiling on them. First the silver, now the rabbits and eggs. She didn't waste a second. She ordered the sons and their wives to get up the mountain and bring everything back before the villagers caught wind of it. Once the children left, Old Man Rin couldn't sit still. He told Mother Rin that since luck was in the air, he was going to check the spring he had been digging in their field. It had been bone dry for weeks, but he hoped today might be different. If that well had water, their winter crops would survive, and next year's harvest would be massive. He grabbed his hoe and hurried out. I stayed in the kitchen, working quietly. I watched all this unfold, feeling a bit dazed. Mother Rin looked at me, her eyes narrowing as she processed the sudden streak of luck. She started to wonder if I was the cause. It was as if I had brought a dowry of good fortune into their home the moment I arrived. She suppressed her excitement and grabbed 2 of the rabbits to prep for lunch. The brothers and their wives didn't return until late afternoon. They didn't bring wood. Instead, they led the mule back with baskets covered in grass, their faces flushed with joy. The villagers tried to pry, but the Rin family kept their mouths shut. Once the gates were locked, they uncovered the hall. It was piles of eggs and a mountain of mushrooms. The eldest wife, Shin Xiaomei, told Mother Rin that they had enough mushrooms to dry and last them for half a year. The second wife, Yang Donghua, showed off the basket of pheasant eggs. It was unbelievable. Then Old Man Run returned, locking the gate behind him with a grin. The dry well wasn't dry anymore. It was overflowing with sweet, clear water. Not only were the crops saved, but they wouldn't have to fight the rest of the village at the communal well anymore. The family decided to celebrate. They slaughtered 2 hens. Soon, the smell of chicken stew with mushrooms and braised rabbit drifted over the walls. The aroma was so strong it reached the end of the village. Neighbors stood outside, salivating and whispering. They knew the wrens had found something on that mountain. Some talked about trying to borrow grain, while others scoffed, knowing Mother Wren wouldn't give a single kernel away for free. Inside, Mother Wren handed me a bowl of chicken and mushroom soup. She told me to take it to the third son's room. It was time for me to meet my husband. She warned me to be patient with him. The rumors said the third son had gone mad and would bite anyone who got close. My heart hammered against my ribs. Mother Wren clearly thought I was a lucky charm, but if I couldn't handle her son, I knew I wouldn't be welcome for long. I headed toward his room, feeling the eyes of my sisters-in-law on my back. My clothes were tattered and faded, making me feel even more out of place. I pushed open the door to the third room. It was dim inside but clean. As my eyes adjusted, I saw a figure on the bed. He was tall, so tall his ankles hung off the end of the mattress. I left the door cracked behind me, terrified by the stories of his violence. The man on the bed moved. He flipped upright with a sudden, violent speed that nearly made me drop the soup. I froze. This was my husband. He was staring at me with a look of pure aggression. But as I looked at him, I realized he didn't look like a monster. He was incredibly handsome, far more than his brothers. He had sharp, defined features and intense eyes that looked like they belonged to a nobleman, not a broken hunter. He was built thick and strong. I stood there, trembling, realizing he could probably kill me with one hand. He didn't say a word. He just watched me, waiting. The smell of the chicken and mushroom soup was incredible. My mouth watered, but I knew I had to stay focused. If I wanted to keep my place in this house, I had to win over my husband. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the bed. "Husband," I whispered, my voice soft and tentative. Rin Rongchong was 17, but he looked at me with a face full of confusion, as if he were trying to figure out what I was. When he heard my voice, his expression softened. He didn't seem to understand what the word husband meant, but his eyes quickly dropped to the bowl in my hands. He pointed at it like a child. "I want to drink chicken soup," he said. I felt a wave of relief. If he wanted to eat, that was a start. I moved toward him, and he held up both hands. He didn't try to grab the bowl or act violent. He was surprisingly docile. As I sat beside him, I realized something strange. I usually have a knack for sensing what people are thinking, but with him, there was nothing. Silence. It was the first time in my life I couldn't hear a person's inner thoughts. I watched him drink the soup. He didn't throw a fit or try to kick me out, which was good, but the silence in his head made me nervous. I didn't know if he would suddenly snap and attack me. I tried to push those thoughts away. I couldn't hear my husband, but I could hear the person outside the window. Mother Wren had followed me. She was crouching by the wall, peeking through a crack in the old window frame. She saw me sitting next to her son and noticed that even though I was clearly starving, I hadn't stolen a single drop of the soup. She seemed satisfied and finally walked away. Rin Rongchong stopped drinking after a few gulps. He pushed the bowl toward my face. "You drink too," he said. I was dying for a taste, but I didn't want Mother Wren to catch me. I shook my head and tried to feed him again, but he was insistent. Once I was sure Mother Wren was gone, I couldn't resist anymore. I took a sip. The warmth hit my throat, and my eyes actually stung with tears. I had never tasted anything so good in my entire life. We finished the bowl together, and he watched me with a happy, simple grin. He really was a bit slow, I realized. But that made him easy to talk to. "I'm your wife," I told him, testing the waters. "Do you understand?" He tilted his head. "What is a wife?" I sighed and leaned in close. "It doesn't matter if you don't know yet. But if mother asks you later, you have to tell her you like me. Tell her I'm the only wife you want. No one else. Can you remember that?" I made him repeat it over and over until he had it down. Only then did I feel safe enough to leave the room. When I got to the kitchen, the rest of the family was already eating. I expected to eat leftovers. That's how it always was at the Song house. But Mother Rin surprised me. She smiled and handed me a huge bowl of chicken soup poured over thick noodles. "We're all eating well today because of the third son's wife," Mother Rin announced to the table. She brought her own dowry of game meat through the door. "You all better look out for her." She glanced pointedly at her other two daughters-in-law. The eldest, sister-in-law Shun, just nodded. She was obedient and didn't seem to mind. But the second wife, Yang, pursed her lips. I could tell she thought this was all just a fluke. She had married into the family for a few copper coins and some sugar. She clearly didn't like that I was being treated like a lucky charm. The Rin brothers, however, were thrilled. Rin Guangjiang, the second brother, called me little sister with a grin. He was tall and strong like his father, the backbone of the farm work. I finished my meal feeling more full than I had in years. I knew they didn't eat like this every day. The grain they had given to my family to buy me must have put a dent in their supplies. But for tonight, everyone was happy. As the sun began to set, Mother Rin told the other wives to find some clothes for me. She even went into her own room and pulled out a roll of bright red floral fabric she had been saving. My heart skipped a beat when she held it up against me. She was going to make me a new dress. I saw the jealousy flash in Yang's eyes, but before she could say anything, sister-in-law Shen suddenly gasped. She leaned against the wall, gagging. Mother Rin dropped the fabric and rushed over to her. "How long has it been since your last cycle?" she asked urgently. Shen looked stunned, then hopeful. She had been married for 2 years without a child. The whole family held their breath. Even Father Rin stood up from his pipe on the porch to listen. After a few questions, Mother Rin beamed. It looked like she was finally going to have a grandchild. "Take the ox cart to town tomorrow," Mother Rin told her eldest son. "Get the doctor to confirm it." She turned back to me, her eyes shining with genuine heat. "The third son's wife really is a lucky star. Everything good is happening at once. I'm going to the village spirit caller tomorrow. I bet her birth signs are a perfect match for our family." Even sister-in-law Shen looked at me with gratitude. "If I really am pregnant," she said, "I'll treat you like my own sister from now on." That night, I went to the washroom to clean up. I held the clothes Shun had given me. They were used and patched, but they were the best clothes I had ever owned. While I was washing, Mother Rin slipped back into the third room. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her son. "Are you happy with this wife, Rongchong?" she asked. My husband nodded, reciting exactly what I had taught him. "I want her to be my wife. I don't care about anyone else. I like her." Mother Rin laughed, her heart full. She was happy he liked me, though she worried to herself that her silly son might not even know what to do with a wife on his wedding night. How was Mother Rin supposed to teach this? Her face turned bright red. Explaining to her son how to sleep with his wife was awkward, and she wasn't even sure if he understood her vague hints. But her new daughter-in-law, Song Jio, seemed like a smart girl. She figured she would just pull her aside later and tell her to be the proactive one. I used the small piece of soap Mother Rin gave me to scrub myself clean. The water felt amazing. I changed into the clothes sister-in-law Shin had provided. They were a bit big on me, but once I tied the waist tight, they worked just fine. When I stepped out of the washroom, Mother Rin called me over. Before she could even speak, my face burned. I gripped my sleeves, my heart hammering against my ribs. Mother Rin looked at me and must have assumed I knew the basics of what happened between a man and a wife. She didn't say much. She just handed me a white cloth. I knew exactly what that cloth was for. I might be young, but because I could hear the inner voices of others, I had learned a lot of things I probably shouldn't have. I took it with a trembling hand and hurried back toward the third room. I didn't want to go in, but then I saw the window to the second room fly open. I didn't want sister-in-law Yang staring at me, so I rushed inside and shut the door. In the second room, Yang Donghua was washing her husband Rin Guangjiang's feet. She was whispering in his ear, trying to push him. "We caught rabbits today, found eggs, and picked mushrooms," she muttered. "Don't you think you should let me take some back to my parents? It's been 3 years of drought. Their lives are hard." She reminded him that he was the one who found the items. Since they were still in the honeymoon phase of their marriage, Rin Guangjiang softened. He agreed to ask his mother tomorrow, figuring there was plenty to go around. But Yang Donghua wasn't done. "Mother always says there's no food left, but she just spent a whole cart of grain to bring in a wife for the third son. There must be a hidden stash. Why don't we take some coarse flour back too?" This made Rin Guangjiang hesitate. Taking a few scraps was one thing, but taking the family's flour was another. "If we take it, the eldest brother's family will want some too. It'll make things hard for mother." Yang Donghua rolled her eyes and squeezed his foot hard enough to make him yelp. "The eldest couple is going to town to see the doctor tomorrow," she hissed. "They won't even know. We'll go early and be back before they return." Rin Guangjiang wanted to refuse, but when he looked into his wife's eyes, his resolve crumbled. People in the village always wondered why a handsome man like him married such a plain woman. They didn't realize she had him wrapped around her finger. Satisfied, she quickly finished the chores and led him to bed. Meanwhile, in the third room, I was staring at Ren Rongchang. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, watching me with curious eyes. His face was flawless, almost too beautiful for a man. I realized then that even if he was simple, he was much better to look at than any other man in the village. Maybe this was the heaven's way of compensating him. He stood up suddenly. He was so tall that the small room felt cramped. I felt tiny standing in front of him. "My mother said we have to consummate the marriage tonight," he said innocently. "Let's start." He began unbuttoning his clothes with a straight face. I scrambled back, terrified. Thankfully, his leg was still injured, or I wouldn't have been able to get away. He stripped down to his thin inner layer, revealing a solid chest and the faint lines of abdominal muscles. I looked away quickly, my face flaming, and focused on the bedding. Mother Rin had replaced the old sheets with nearly new ones. It wasn't a traditional red wedding bed, but it was clean and comfortable. Do you even know what consummating means?" I asked tentatively. He nodded vigorously. "I know. It means holding my wife to sleep." I felt a massive wave of relief wash over me. And then, he sat back down and patted the spot next to him. "Come here, wife." I didn't move. "What else did your mother say?" He grinned. "She said as long as I hold you tight, it's fine." I finally relaxed. I told him to wait and went to the kitchen to fetch some warm water. He had been in bed all day. He needed a sponge bath. In the main house, Father Rin puffed on his pipe. "Do you think the boy understands what to do?" Mother Rin was busy sewing a new shirt for me using the floral fabric from earlier. "The third son's wife is a lucky star," she said. "Even if he doesn't understand, she will. She knows she needs to stay in this family. Tomorrow I'll check their birth signs with the spirit caller. If they match, we'll treat her even better. I just want them to have a child soon so my job is done." Father Rin nodded. He was still thinking about the spring. He had tried to find water in that spot for years and failed, yet the moment I arrived, the water started flowing. It was uncanny. Back in our room, I brought the water in. To my surprise, Ren Rongchang took the cloth and started wiping himself down. He was surprisingly independent. I took the cloth from him and helped him wash his face, neck, and back. When the cloth brushed against his stomach, I froze. My palm felt the heat of his skin, and I felt like I was taking advantage of him. "Wife?" he asked, pointing at his legs. "You missed a spot." I shoved the cloth into his hands. "Do it yourself." He didn't get angry or bite me like the rumors suggested. He just did as he was told. He was like a child. My guard began to drop. When it was time to sleep, I tried to keep some distance between us on the mattress. But he immediately lunged over and pulled me into a tight hug. "Mother said if we don't do this, she'll kick you out," he whispered. "I don't want you to leave, so we have to stay like this." I didn't fight him. I lay there, perfectly still, until I heard his steady, rhythmic snoring. He really didn't know anything else. I let out a long breath and closed my eyes. That night was the best sleep I had ever had. The blankets were soft and warm, and the man beside me felt like a heater. For the first time in my life, I didn't have nightmares. I thought about the years I spent sleeping in haystacks with my sister, shivering in the cold. Compared to that, This life was heaven. I stayed tucked in until the first light of dawn began to peek through the window. I woke up before the sun. Usually, I would have rushed out to start the day's chores, but this morning was different. I looked at my husband, Ren Rongchang, sleeping soundly beside me. I moved carefully, slipping out of his embrace without waking him. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out the white silk cloth Mother Ren had given me. I didn't hesitate. I took a sharp ceramic shard I had found and sliced my small toe. I let the blood drip onto the fabric until the stain looked convincing. I cleaned the wound, pulled on my old cloth shoes, and hid the stained cloth under the mattress. Everyone else was still asleep. I headed straight for the woodshed and grabbed the heavy axe. I started splitting logs, my small frame moving with practiced ease. My hands were used to hard labor. By the time Mother Ren woke up, she heard the rhythmic thud of the axe. She walked to the doorway and saw me drenched in sweat, a pile of wood already at my feet. I could see the flash of emotion in her eyes. She was moved. She didn't stop me. Instead, she hurried toward our bedroom and shut the door. She went straight to the bed. Rongchang was still out cold. When she pulled back the corner of the blanket and saw the red stains on the silk cloth, a satisfied smile spread across her face. She tucked the cloth into her sleeve and shook Rongchang's shoulder. He sat up, blinking at his mother. She asked him if he had done what she taught him the night before. He nodded eagerly. "Wife is so thin," he complained. "It's like hugging a little pillow." Mother Ren sighed. Her son was strong and a bit reckless. She assumed he had been too rough with me. She couldn't understand how I was already out chopping wood if I was in pain. Her expression shifted from satisfaction to worry. She left the room and came back to the woodshed. She told me to stop and rest. "You're working so hard," she said, her eyes searching mine. "Do you feel any discomfort in your body?" My heart hammered against my ribs. I paused, looking at her uncertainly, then shook my head. "Mother, I'm not afraid of hard work. Just tell me what needs to be done." She didn't mention the cloth. Instead, she went to find my second sister-in-law, Yang Donghua. Yang Donghua had spent the night trying to please her husband so she could convince him to take grain to her parents' house. She was exhausted and had planned to sleep in. When Mother Ren dragged her out of bed and started scolding her, she was furious. She looked at me and the pile of wood I had chopped. She looked at me like I was a freak. She couldn't understand it. On her own wedding night, she hadn't been able to get out of bed the next morning. She thought I was just being showy to make her look bad. She grumbled under her breath, letting the scolding wash over her while she dreamed of the food she was going to steal later. My eldest sister-in-law came out next. She was a kind woman and felt bad for being late. She offered to take over the heavy chores and suggested I focus on lighter housework. Mother Ren finally calmed down. She looked at me and smiled. "You brought a dowry into this house," Mother Ren said. "For the next month, your only job is to take care of Rongchang. Help him with his leg. Don't go chopping wood at dawn anymore. We have enough hands for that." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The plan had worked. I was safe for now. Mother Ren told me to go back to the room and massage Rongchang's leg. I headed back under the strange stares of my sisters-in-law. I knew I had to play my part perfectly if I wanted to stay. Inside, Rongchang was sitting on the bed. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Wife, come here." He patted the spot next to him. I checked under the mattress. The cloth was gone. My mother-in-law believed the lie. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I was officially his wife now. They wouldn't throw me out. I looked at his right leg. He had broken it over a month ago, and while he could stand for short bursts, he was mostly bedridden. I told him to lie down so I could work on the muscles. He looked at me with those innocent, wide eyes. "Wife," he whispered, "can we consummate during the day? Mother said we can't. She said people would laugh at us." My face went beet red. I felt the heat climbing up my neck to my ears. I coughed and stepped back. "No," I said firmly. "Mother is right. That's for nighttime. I'm just going to rub your leg so you can walk again." He let out a long, dramatic sigh of relief. He usually treated his mother's words like divine law, but he seemed to care more about what I thought. He leaned in close, his breath smelling faintly of grass. He gripped the edge of the bed, almost caging me in. "Then tonight," he whispered into my ear, "let's do it many more times." The intensity of his presence made my skin sting. I pushed him back down onto the pillows. "Fine, just lie down." I figured I could handle another night of him hugging me like a giant heater. He lay back, looking happy. Then he pointed toward his hip with a confused expression. Wife, I don't know why, but when I was holding you last night, I felt very uncomfortable down here. I even had a dream. He started to describe the dream with total innocence. My heart nearly stopped. It was definitely not a dream a child should be having. Before he could get to the details, I lunged forward and slammed my hand over his mouth. Don't say another word, I hissed. He stopped talking immediately, staring at me with wide, blinking eyes. I realized then that while he had the mind of a child, he was still a grown man. I was going to have to be very careful from now on. He stared at me with those big, wide eyes, looking confused. He reached out and grabbed my hand, pulling it away from his mouth. Wife, your hands smell so good, he said softly. They're so soft. I snatched my hand back immediately. My heart was racing. I couldn't let him keep talking like this. If someone was eavesdropping outside the window, they'd laugh themselves to death. I looked around the room, desperate for a distraction, when my eyes landed on a small table. There was a book sitting there. I froze for a second, then climbed off the bed and grabbed it. I brought it over and held it out to Rin Rongchang. Are you reading this? I asked, surprised. He took the book from me, gently flipping it over because I had handed it to him upside down. He nodded seriously. My older brothers can read. I followed my mother and learned a bit too. This is the Spring and Autumn Annals. It's about the history of the state of Lu. I like reading it. I was stunned. In my world, only the rich and powerful knew how to read. Deep down, I had a profound respect, almost a fear, of anyone with an education. Looking at my husband now, I realized I couldn't underestimate him anymore. Husband, I said, an idea forming. Why don't you read it to me? I'll rub your leg while you do. That way, your leg gets better and I get to listen. It was the perfect plan to keep his mind off nighttime activities. He leaned back against the headboard and opened the first page. His voice was beautiful. It sounded like ice clinking against fine jade, crisp and clear. I didn't understand most of the words, but I was mesmerized. As my hands worked rhythmically over his calf, I looked up. In that moment, Rin Rongchang seemed to glow. The light from the window hit him from behind, framing his sharp features and focused expression. He looked dignified, almost scholarly. I found myself staring, completely lost in the sight of him. He finished one page and moved straight to the second, lost in his own world. By the time I had finished massaging his entire right leg, he finally stopped. The serious scholar vanished instantly, replaced by his usual playful self. Wife, did you understand? He whispered, leaning in close. I shook my head. His face was inches from mine, and I could smell that faint scent of fresh grass again. It made me nervous in a way I couldn't explain. I've been learning characters since I was 7, he said proudly. I've read every book in this house. How about I teach you? My heart skipped a beat. The thought of learning to read was incredible, but I forced myself to stay grounded. I looked down and shook my head. I was lucky enough just to be kept in this house. I didn't dare dream of an education. The Spring and Autumn Annals is too hard for you right now, he continued, his innocent face breaking into a grin. He pressed the book into my hands. One of these days, I'll sneak the 1,000-character classic over. I'll teach you that. It's easy. I held the book like it was a sacred relic. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps outside. It was the eldest sister-in-law, Shinshio. I panicked and shoved the book under the mattress. The door was slightly ajar, and she pushed it open. She saw me standing by the bed and smiled. Third sister-in-law, you really are a hard worker, doing so much for him first thing in the morning. Come on, it's time for breakfast. Mother made rabbit meat. Ever since she found out she was pregnant yesterday, Shinshio had been convinced I was a lucky charm. She grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the kitchen, calling back to Rongchang that I'd bring him food in a minute. At the table, I made sure to serve my husband first. Mother Rin surprised me by scooping several large chunks of rabbit into my bowl. My older brothers-in-law stared. Mother, this is enough for both me and my husband, I said quickly. I don't really like meat. Mother Rin looked at me with a bit of pity. Go take that to him. I left your portion in the pot. We don't mistreat new brides in this house. With her word final, the others looked away. I hurried back to our room with the bowl. The smell of the meat made my stomach growl. I had worked all morning on an empty stomach. Inside, Rongchang saw me and immediately opened his mouth like a baby bird. Wife, feed me. He was definitely getting spoiled. I listened for any noise outside. When I was sure no one was coming, I sat beside him. You need to eat by yourself. Be good. He loved it when I spoke to him softly. He smiled, took the bowl, and then paused. Will you still feed me later? When I'm better, I'll buy you something pretty. I thought about the book hidden under the mattress. If I feed you, you have to teach me to read. And you can't tell Mother. Deal. He agreed instantly. I realized that as long as he promised something, I could trust him. He hadn't slipped up about our secret from last night, after all. After breakfast, the house got busy. The eldest brother, Ren Guangtian, was taking the ox cart to town to bring Shunqiu to a clinic. If she really was pregnant, they needed medicine to settle the pregnancy. Mother Ren even gave them some private money for it. I saw the second brother's wife, Yang Donghua, watching from her doorway. Her eyes were narrowed, clearly calculating how much money the eldest couple had received. As soon as the cart left, she dragged her husband, Ren Guangjiang, into the main house to complain. A few minutes later, I peeked out the window. The second couple was leaving the yard, looking very happy, carrying a heavy sack of grain. Mother Ren followed them out with a basket, calling back to me. Third daughter-in-law, stay home and watch the house. Don't go out. I shouted my agreement. Suddenly, the yard was silent. It was just me and my husband. I sat back down on the bed. Husband, read to me again. I'll rub your leg. I reached for his leg, but his face suddenly turned bright red. He grabbed my hand and pressed it against his stomach. Stomach hurts, he groaned. I need the latrine. My heart sank. Both his brothers were gone. There was no one else to help him. With my face burning red, I helped him limp out to the latrine. I stayed outside, refusing to go in. He was surprisingly obedient and handled things himself. But then I heard a sharp, ow. Are you okay? I yelled, worried he'd fallen in. He hobbled out, looking miserable. His right leg was clearly hurting, and his pants were haphazardly undone. He looked like he was about to cry. Big brother usually ties my belt for me, he muttered. I sighed, my face feeling like it was on fire. I stepped forward and carefully straightened his clothes, fumbling with his belt to tie it shut. I worked as fast as I could, praying no neighbors would walk by and see us like this. It was incredibly embarrassing, but he was my husband, and I was the only one he had. Ren Rongchang's breathing grew heavy above me. I stopped what I was doing and looked up, surprised. His face was beet red, and he was huffing and puffing with a look of pure distress. He told me that when his brothers helped him, it wasn't like this. He asked why he felt so uncomfortable all over just because I was tying his belt. I pretended not to understand. I lied and told him he must just be thirsty. I managed to coax him back to the room, and after gulping down a few cups of cold water, he said he felt much better. He even praised me, saying my methods really worked. As he leaned against the headboard to read, I didn't stop for a second, continuing to massage his injured leg. My mind wandered to my sisters-in-law leaving earlier. I looked at my husband and started asking him about the family business. I knew I was hardworking, and for some reason, people thought I brought good luck, but if I wanted to survive here, my husband couldn't be a total pushover. I had already seen how biased Mother Rin was toward the second son. Seeing the second sister-in-law haul so much grain back to her parents made me wonder how the eldest sister-in-law would react when she found out. In this house, my status depended entirely on my husband. I needed to know if Mother Rin actually valued him. Rongchang told me everything without holding back. It turned out the family only had about 20 acres of land, which wasn't actually that much. They only had a surplus because Mother Rin was a master at managing the household. Father Rin and the second brother were experts in the fields, managing to grow rice and raise fish at the same time. The eldest brother was a carpenter who made furniture and dowries for nearby villages to earn cash. As for my simple husband, he was actually the best hunter in the area. Whenever the local village boys went into the mountains in groups, they insisted he come along. Without him, they wouldn't even go. I was still processing all this information when the courtyard gate swung open. Father Rin rushed in, quickly bolting the door behind him. He shouted for me to come out, telling me we were having fish today. I hurried outside and saw him holding a string of grass carp as long as my arm. There were so many that they must have weighed over 20 pounds. He put them in a wooden bucket and told me there were more in the fields. He said it was the strangest thing. The spring that had been dry for half a year suddenly started gushing water last night. When he went to dig a pit today, he found a whole pond full of fish. He called me the family's lucky star and said our luck was finally changing. He was beaming. These weren't small fish. They looked like they had come straight from a mountain spring and washed into our fields. Luckily, most of the villagers were busy working elsewhere, so no one saw. Father Rin grabbed a shoulder pole and baskets to go back for more. I was quick thinking and grabbed a basket of grass from the cowshed to give to him. I told him to cover the fish with the grass so the neighbors wouldn't notice. He praised my cleverness and hurried back out. I stayed busy, squatting by the kitchen door to clean the fish. By the time Father Run returned with the next load, I had already gutted the first batch and rubbed them with salt. Even though the weather was cooling down, fish wouldn't stay fresh long. I needed to dry them in the sun while it was still out so we'd have food for a long time. Father Rin ended up bringing back 3 full loads of carp and crucian carp. He saw me working tirelessly and told me to stop. He said I should wait for Mother Rin to get back and just focus on taking care of Rongchang. He kept calling me a lucky star. I headed back to the room, though I didn't mind the work. Back at the Song house, I worked from dawn till dusk. Being here felt like a dream in comparison. Once inside, I realized I smelled like raw fish. I didn't want to sit near my husband like that, so I used the last of the juju bean powder to wash my face and hands until the scent was gone. When I finally sat by the bed, Rongchang suddenly grabbed my hand and smelled it. He smiled and said I smelled good. He promised that once his leg healed, he'd go to town and buy me something fragrant. His genuine care touched my heart. I didn't care about perfumes. I just wanted him to protect me. Maybe it was the rare moment of peace, but as I massaged his leg, I drifted off to sleep. Rongchang put down his book and used his long arms to gently scoop me up, laying me on the inner side of the bed. He clearly wanted to cuddle and nap with me, but his mother had warned him that consummating wasn't allowed during the day. He moved away slightly, struggling to control the urge to hold me. He decided that reading was the only way to calm his mind, especially since I seemed to like it when he studied. Meanwhile, the second sister-in-law, Yang Donghua, had arrived at her parents' house with her husband and a heavy sack of grain. Her parents were overjoyed, their eyes practically glowing at the sight of the food. Her mother, Mrs. Zhou, beamed and pulled her inside, shouting for the eldest daughter-in-law to go boil water for the honored guest. Donghua's brothers immediately inspected the hall. There were fresh mushrooms, wild eggs, and a massive amount of coarse grain. Buried at the bottom was a small bag of fine flour. The whole load weighed nearly 200 pounds. They treated the couple like royalty, knowing this grain would get them through the winter. Once they were in a private room, Donghua pulled out her secret savings, 300 copper coins she had skimmed and saved, including what Mother Rin had given her. Her mother's eyes sparkled. With this much grain and cash, the Yang family was going to have a great new year. Donghua started gossiping about me, her new sister-in-law. She told her mother how eerie things had become since I arrived. She mentioned the dry springs suddenly flowing and how her husband, who couldn't hunt to save his life, had suddenly found rabbits, eggs, and mushrooms everywhere. Her mother was annoyed that Donghua hadn't brought the rabbits. Donghua grumbled that Mother Rin insisted on raising them until they were fatter. Her mother told her not to worry. She just had to wait until they were big and then snatch them. She reminded Donghua that a woman had to keep her husband under her thumb to have status in the family. Donghua bragged that she already had him trained. She said she only had to say a few words, and he'd go running to Mother Rin for her. She claimed that even though Mother Rin was strict, she favored the second son. Donghua was confident that even if the eldest sister-in-law was pregnant, she still held the most power in the house. Hearing that the eldest sister-in-law might be pregnant, however, made her mother look a little worried. Yang Donghua patted her flat stomach, her eyes filled with worry and ambition. She was desperate to get pregnant before the eldest sister-in-law, Shinxiomei. In this house, having a son first meant holding the power. Her mother saw the look and offered to find a secret herbal recipe to help her conceive. Donghua nodded quickly. Mother Rin had chosen her specifically for her wide hips, thinking she'd be a breeder, but a year had passed with nothing to show for it. Her mother warned her to be careful. With the eldest sister-in-law pregnant and me, the new lucky third wife, bringing in resources, Donghua's status was at risk. If she lost favor, She wouldn't be able to sneak food back home anymore. But Donghua just scoffed. She didn't view me as a threat at all. To her, I was just a silent, hard-working pushover who barely existed in the house. She promised her mother that once my husband, Rin Rongchong, healed and started hunting again, she'd bring back even more meat for them. After lunch, Donghua and Rin Guangjiang hurried to leave. They wanted to get home before the eldest brother and his wife returned from the city. On the way back, Guangjiang carried the empty shoulder pole, his strong frame moving with a bit of a temper. Donghua, acting spoiled, refused to walk and insisted he carry her. He blushed, but eventually crouched down, picking her up and taking the back trails to avoid being seen by the villagers. Back at the Rin family courtyard, the eldest brother, Rin Guangtian, and his wife Xin Xiumei arrived first. They brought great news. Xiumei was indeed 2 months pregnant. They had even bought medicine to protect the pregnancy. But when they walked in, they were stunned to see the yard filled with fresh fish. Xiumei, already dealing with pregnancy cravings, couldn't take her eyes off them. Mother Run returned shortly after with an empty basket and a massive grin. She had just visited the spirit medium. Our horoscopes were a perfect match. The medium told her I was a lucky star whose fortune had been suppressed by my own family until I joined the Rins. Seeing the fish and hearing about the pregnancy made Mother Rin ecstatic. She rolled up her sleeves and started cleaning the fish immediately, convinced she had made the right choice in buying me. By the time Donghua and Guangjiang finally slunk back into the yard, the fish were already salted and hanging to dry. Xiumei looked at them suspiciously. She asked why they hadn't been around to help. When she saw their guilty faces, she realized they must have gone to the Yang family home. Mother Rin tried to cover for them, telling everyone to stop asking questions and just help with the fish. But Donghua, seeing the massive fish, only felt regret. She wished she had stayed longer, so she could have taken some of these to her own parents. Xiumei wasn't stupid. She sensed something was wrong and ran to the backyard. Mother Ren's face paled, and she tried to have the eldest brother stop her, but it was too late. Xiumei saw that half of the dried mushrooms were gone. She stood there, tears welling up in her eyes. Father Ren sighed, his head aching. He looked at Mother Ren, knowing that if she didn't treat the 2 daughters-in-law equally, there would be no peace, especially now that the eldest was pregnant. Mother Ren snapped at the eldest couple, telling them to be more understanding since Donghua was allowed to visit her parents. But Xiumei wouldn't let it go. The drought has lasted 3 years, she sobbed. Everyone is struggling. Why can she take food home, and I can't? I'm carrying the family's grandson. Mother Ren finally gave in. She told Xiumei she could take the remaining half of the mushrooms to her own family. But Xiumei, the daughter of a scholar, was sharp. She looked at the empty shoulder pole in the corner and then at Donghua. You took so many mushrooms that you needed a shoulder pole and baskets, she asked. Donghua tried to lie, saying she only used 1 small basket. But Xiumei pointed at the corner. The shoulder pole was here yesterday. It's gone now. You don't use a pole for 1 basket of mushrooms. Father Ren was shocked by Xiumei's intelligence. Mother Ren was frustrated. A scholar's daughter was much harder to fool than a typical farm girl. She glared at Donghua, wishing her second daughter-in-law had a brain to match her ego. Guangjiang tried to jump in, claiming he used the baskets to carry firewood to the Yangs. Xiumei immediately checked the woodshed. The wood the 3rd sister-in-law chopped this morning is all still here. Don't lie to me. Guangjiang went silent, looking at his mother for help. To keep the peace, Mother Ren was forced to give the eldest couple an equal share, a bag of grain, the rest of the mushrooms, and the wild eggs I had found. Just like that, the surprises I had brought home were gone. At least the rabbits were still there. To fully settle the matter, Mother Ren grabbed 4 of the fattest fish and gave them to Xiumei to take to her parents. The eldest couple quickly set off, eager to share their pregnancy news and their new stash of food. As the yard finally quieted down, Donghua tried to sneak into her room to rest. Mother Ren stopped her cold. Don't even think about it. Go clean the cow shed and the chicken coops. If it's not spotless, you don't get dinner. Guangjiang tried to protect his wife. But isn't the 3rd sister-in-law here? She's the hard-working one. Just then, the door to our room creaked open. I stepped out into the yard, catching the tail end of the tension. I couldn't believe I had actually fallen asleep. My husband hadn't even tried to wake me, letting me sleep straight through until the afternoon. A wave of panic hit me. If Mother Rin found out I'd been lazing around, she would be furious. I hurried out into the yard, but Mother Rin's voice stopped me. She wasn't angry at me. She was glaring at Yang Donghua. You want to compare yourself to the third daughter-in-law? You'd need her luck first, Mother Rin snapped. Think about the things you took to your parents today. Whose luck brought those in? And the fish that fell from the sky. Would you be eating those without her? She made her decision right then and there. It's settled. The third daughter-in-law just got here. Her only job is to look after the third son's health. She doesn't need to worry about anything else. As for chores, the eldest daughter-in-law is pregnant, so she'll help me with the cooking. Everything else, the sweeping, the laundry, the small tasks, goes to the second daughter-in-law. If you don't do it well, don't expect to eat. Mother Rin might favor her second son, but his wife's greed had finally pushed her too far. She loved Guangjiang, but she had no patience for Donghua's laziness. If I had been given those chores, I would have finished them in half a day, but Donghua just stood there making excuses. Guangjiang looked at his wife, hoping to say something, but she just shot him a cold glare. Donghua grabbed a broom and stomped toward the backyard, but she couldn't help stopping to complain one last time. Mother, does the third sister-in-law really do nothing? At least the eldest is helping with the cooking. Mother Rin had no time for her whining. She just joined this family. Her job is to care for Rongchang. Back when he was hunting on the mountain and bringing home meat, you certainly didn't mind eating your share. Why start counting pennies now? Guangjiang realized his brother still couldn't walk and needed help, so he tugged at his wife's arm to stop the shouting. He followed her to the back and took the broom from her hand to do the work himself. Mother Rin opened her mouth to call him back, but they disappeared into the backyard. She sighed. It seemed once a son married, he forgot his mother and only flattered her when he wanted something. She turned to me and waved me over. I walked to her side, acting as obedient as possible. She reached into a bucket, pulled out 4 large, clean grass carp, and placed them in a bamboo tray. When you go back to visit your parents on the 3rd day, take these with you, she said. I've already salted them for you. I immediately shook my head. I didn't want to go back to the Song family, and I certainly didn't want to give them anything. Mother Rin squeezed my hand, sensing my hesitation. She knew I had been sold for a cart of grain to replace my sister. Take good care of my son, she said softly. I won't mistreat you. The others are sending food to their families, and you shouldn't have less. On the 3rd day, I'll have the eldest brother take you there. I tried to refuse again, but she wouldn't hear it. She was convinced that the fish only appeared because of my good fortune. I stayed in the kitchen to help her process the rest of the fish. From the backyard, I could hear the second brother and his wife laughing together. Despite their flaws, they clearly cared for each other. It made me think of my own husband. I remembered him from when he used to study, and a small smile touched my lips. After a while, I heard Rongchang's voice calling for me from our room. Mother Rin's face lit up with joy. Listen to that. He's really taken a liking to you. Go on, the fish are done. Go be with your husband. Blushing, I left the kitchen and entered our room. Rongchang greeted me with that innocent, bright smile of his. He patted the spot on the bed next to him. My legs feel funny, he said. Wife, can you press them for me again? I grew worried. I climbed onto the bed quickly to massage his legs, but he grabbed my hand and leaned in close. I need to be strong, he whispered, because I want to eat fish tonight. My face turned beet red. I managed to pull my hand back and started rubbing his legs. Husband, I whispered, can you try to walk a few steps? I had noticed him moving a bit when I helped him earlier. He nodded. It doesn't actually hurt that much, but Mother won't let me get up. You have to try, I encouraged him. Staying in bed forever won't help you heal. With my help, he ignored his mother's orders and stood up, leaning on the bed frame. He took 2 shaky steps and looked back at me. When he saw the joy in my eyes, he kept going, slowly circling the bed. He started to sweat after just a few minutes, so I quickly helped him sit back down. As I massaged his legs again, I told him about the trip back to my parents' house. Before, I felt like I had been sold into slavery, but Mother Rin treated this like a real marriage. It changed how I felt about everything. Rongchang didn't understand what a 3rd-day visit was at first. Once I explained it, and told him his eldest brother would be taking me, he pouted. No, my wife. I'm going. He turned his head away, acting genuinely upset that another man would accompany me. I pressed a little harder on his leg, making him let out a small yelp. He looked at me, his eyes full of mock grievance. "It hurts," he complained. I couldn't help but laugh, and seeing me happy, his anger vanished instantly. Later that evening, I went to help with dinner. While I was gone, Rongchang stayed in the room, practicing his walking over and over whenever no one was looking. He wanted to get better as fast as possible. The eldest couple returned late after eating at her parents' house. Shin Xiaomei was beaming. Clearly, her family was thrilled about the pregnancy and the food. Mother Rin pulled her aside to tell her to rest, since we didn't need extra hands during the slow season anyway. But when Mother Rin mentioned the eldest brother taking me to my parents' house, Xiaomei looked a bit uncomfortable. Still, she remembered that she only got pregnant because of my luck, so she kept her mouth shut. Back in her own room, Xiaomei pulled out a set of new clothes she had made for her husband. She hadn't even let him wear them to her own parents' house, but she decided he should wear them to take me home so we wouldn't look poor. She even found a pair of new embroidered shoes to give to me. She knew a woman's reputation depended on how she looked when she returned home for the first time. Meanwhile, in the second brother's room, Donghua collapsed onto the bed, exhausted from the chores. Guangzhang rubbed her shoulders, trying to soothe her. "Mother is so biased toward the third sister-in-law," she grumbled. "She never made me work this hard before." "Just wait until the third brother's leg is healed," Guangzhang whispered. "She's a hard worker. Once she starts helping, it won't be this bad. Just endure it for now." Donghua curled her lip. She knew the Song family was poor and that I was used to hard labor, but she still didn't buy the luck story. "Everyone says she's a lucky star, but I don't believe it. Tomorrow, I'm telling Mother I'm taking her up the mountain to graze the cattle. I want to see this luck for myself." I didn't believe in luck. Neither did my second brother-in-law, Guangjiang. He was convinced that in a drought this bad, any eggs, mushrooms, or rabbits on the mountain would have been snatched up long ago by starving villagers. He thought his mother was delusional for believing I brought fortune to the family. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I didn't want to give my mother-in-law any reason to complain, so I slipped out to the woodshed and got to work. I swept the entire courtyard, then moved on to the ox pen and the chicken coop, scrubbing them until they were spotless. By the time the rest of the family rubbed the sleep from their eyes, I was already finished. My second sister-in-law, Donghua, stared at the clean pens with her jaw dropping. She looked at me like I was a monster. She and her husband had spent all yesterday afternoon cleaning, and they hadn't done half as good a job as I just did. I could practically hear her thoughts screaming. How is this possible? Mother Rin was beaming. She praised me right in front of everyone, throwing a pointed look at Donghua. It was clear she was comparing my hard work to Donghua's constant complaining. Donghua's face soured. She looked at me with pure resentment, wishing I were just a little bit lazier so I wouldn't make her look so bad. From now on, Mother Rin announced, Donghua will handle the pens. Songjio, you stay in the kitchen and help me with the meals. Mother, that's not fair, Donghua blurted out. But one sharp glare from Mother Rin silenced her. Desperate to get away and test my luck, Donghua quickly changed her tune. Mother, why don't I take Songjio up the mountain to graze the cattle after breakfast? It's easy work, and she needs to learn her way around the village. Mother Rin agreed. Donghua let out a breath of relief. She was determined to see if my luck was real or just a fluke. After breakfast, I went back to the room to check on Rongchang. I told him I was going to graze the cattle and promised to massage his legs the moment I got back. Usually, he was clingy and didn't want me to leave, but today he was surprisingly understanding. He just nodded and told me to be careful. As Donghua and I led the ox through the village, I felt everyone's eyes on me. I was a new bride, after all. But as they looked at my thin, underdeveloped frame, I saw the disappointment on the village women's faces. Compared to the curvy, sturdy Donghua, I looked like a scrawny child. I heard their whispers. I thought Mother Rin chose brides based on who had the biggest hips for childbearing. Why did she pick this skinny thing? Third brother is a hunter, strong and powerful. How is she supposed to handle him? I ignored them and followed Donghua up the mountain. As soon as we reached the top, I didn't sit down to rest. I grabbed my sickle and started cutting grass for fodder. Donghua watched me, completely baffled. She couldn't understand why I was working so hard when the mother-in-law wasn't even watching. To her, grazing the cattle was a chance to slack off. I didn't bring a sickle, she muttered. excusing herself from the work. I just smiled at her. Back at my parents' house, this was considered light labor. I didn't mind. I filled my basket quickly, but just as I was about to stand up, I saw something. Tucked away in a patch of dry thorns was a plant I recognized. I froze. Donghwa's eyes locked onto me. I could feel her heart racing. No way, she thought. It can't be. Not again. I used my sickle to clear the weeds, revealing the leaves of the plant. I looked back at her. Second sister-in-law. Does this look like Panax Nodo ginseng to you? I only knew what it was because I'd seen it once at a doctor's house in my old village. Donghwa wasn't as poor as me. She had gone herb gathering back when the weather was good. She rubbed her eyes, convinced she was hallucinating. It wasn't just one plant. It was a whole patch of high-quality medicinal herbs hidden in a damp, secluded spot she had visited dozens of times before. She had never seen them. Not once. But the moment I stepped onto this mountain, there they were. It is, she whispered, her face turning bright red with excitement. Don't say a word. Someone might hear us. She grabbed a sturdy stick and started digging like a woman possessed. All her laziness vanished in an instant. The soil was moist from the night dew, making it easy to unearth the roots. When we finally pulled the first one out, we both gasped. It was massive, solid, and thick. A root this size had to be at least 5 years old. To Donghua, it didn't look like a plant anymore. It looked like pure silver. Stay here, she hissed, covering the patch with dry grass. Sit on it. Don't let anyone see. I'm going back to get shovels and the rest of the family. We're going to be rich. She took off down the mountain so fast her shoes almost flew off. I sat there in the silence, looking at the hidden treasure beneath me. I had to admit it now. Ever since I married into the Rin family, things were changing. One miracle after another was falling right into my lap. My luck wasn't just a story anymore. It was real. Young Donghua burst into the small courtyard and slammed the gate shut behind her. The sudden noise made Mother Rin look up from her needlework, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. She could tell something was happening just by the way Donghua was panting. What is it now? Mother Rin asked, standing up. What good news are you bringing? Mother Rin had a way of sensing things. The door to the main room flew open, and the eldest brother, Rin Guangtian, and his wife, Shin Xiaomei, hurried out. Donghua didn't wait. She reached into her clothes and pulled out the massive root we had unearthed, thrusting it toward Mother Rin. Look, Mother. Look what I found on the mountain. Donghua's face was glowing with pride. It's a sanchi root. At least 5 years old. The medicine shops say these are worth more than gold. Mother Rin snatched it from her hands, examining it closely. Her eyes widened. It really is, and it's huge. This is incredible. Donghua immediately tried to take all the credit. I knew taking the cows to that specific spot today was the right move. I came back to get everyone. We need shovels. There are more up there. Mother Rin looked at the root, then shifted her gaze to Donghua. Her eyes were sharp, like she could see right through the lie. This was found by the third daughter-in-law, wasn't it? Donghua opened her mouth to argue, but under Mother Rin's stare, the words died in her throat. Shin Xiaomei laughed and stepped forward. Our third brother's wife really is a lucky charm, Xiaomei said, a playful edge to her voice. She goes out to graze cows and stumbles upon rare herbs. Second sister-in-law, you didn't just leave her up there to guard the spot while you ran back here to claim the reward, did you? Donghua glared at her. She wanted to snap back that I never would have found them if she hadn't led me there, but she stayed quiet. Father Rin and the second brother were still out in the fields, so Mother Rin turned to the eldest, Guangtian. Take a shovel and go with her, Mother Rin ordered. Get those things out of the ground before someone else sees them. We can't have people asking questions. Donghua didn't waste a second. She grabbed a hoe from the corner and sprinted back toward the mountain with Guangtian trailing behind. I was still sitting on that rock, staring at the path. 3 villagers had passed by already, staring at me. I wasn't afraid of them looking at me, but I was terrified they'd notice the patch of herbs. When I finally saw Donghua and Big Brother Guangtian, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. While they dug, I stood watch at the trailhead. They filled a whole basket with sanchi roots, covering them with thick grass to hide the treasure. Once they were finished, Donghua wanted to rush back with her brother to show off the haul, leaving me behind with the cows. Guangtian looked at me and shook his head. Third sister-in-law is new here. She doesn't know the way back from this part of the mountain yet. You stay here, Donghua. You're used to the cows. We'll take the herbs back first. Donghua looked annoyed, but she knew Mother Rin already knew who had actually found the herbs. There was no point in fighting it. I followed Guangtian back to the house. We walked fast. People in the village stared as we passed, but they were mostly looking at me, the new bride, rather than the basket. Back at the courtyard, the family gathered around. Mother Rin was already calculating the profit. This basket is worth a fortune, she whispered. Wash them, dry them tonight, and tomorrow we take them to the pharmacy. Chiomei took my hand and pulled me into the house. She reached into a chest and pulled out a pair of beautifully embroidered shoes. I believe I got pregnant because of the luck you brought us, she said, pressing the shoes into my hands. I made these myself. I haven't even worn them. Wear them tomorrow when you visit your parents. You can't let them look down on you. I stared at them. I had never owned a pair of new shoes in my life. Chiomei didn't wait for an answer. She knelt down to help me put them on. I tried to pull back, embarrassed, but she insisted. They fit perfectly. They look beautiful on you, she said. I wish I knew how to do fancy embroidery, but these will have to do. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. My feet felt cozy, but my heart felt even better. When Father Ren and the second brother returned from the fields, they were carrying a basket of their own. They had been digging water pits and found loaches, eels, and snails. The villagers were jealous. In this drought, the Rin family's well was a miracle, and now they were finding food where others found only dust. That night, Mother Rin and Father Rin huddled in their room. They planned to sell the herbs and buy several cartloads of grain. With that much food, the family could survive the winter and the lean months of spring, no matter how bad the drought got. Mother Rin was also preparing for my homecoming visit. She set aside 4 grass carp and 3 bags of grain for me to take to my parents. While I was washing up, she went into our room to talk to Rongchong. She wanted to tell him I'd be gone for half a day and that he shouldn't throw a tantrum. But the moment she mentioned me leaving, Rongchong scrambled out of bed. Mother, I can walk, he cried, circling the bed frame with a limp. I want to go with my wife. His leg wasn't even close to being healed. Mother Rin tried to forbid it, but Rongchong wouldn't listen. He was completely devoted to me now. Mother Rin was happy they got along, but a part of her worried. Her son was starting to listen to his wife more than his own mother. How do you even know about the homecoming visit? She asked him. My wife told me, Rongchong said proudly. It's a husband's job to go. I won't let Big Brother do it for me. He was actually jealous. Mother Rin managed to calm him down and left the room. She saw me pouring out the bathwater and sighed. You're going tomorrow, she said. I'll have your eldest brother take you on the ox cart. You need to talk to Rongchong. His leg is too bad for the trip, and he doesn't know how to speak to people properly. It's better if he stays. I knew what she was really worried about. She didn't want him to embarrass the family in Stone Village. Mother, his leg is indeed fragile, I said softly. I don't want him to suffer the bumpy ride. As for his speech, I can teach him. He has a pure heart. He means no harm. Mother Rin looked at me, her expression softening. She realized then that I truly didn't look down on her son. She had made the right choice in buying me. She wanted the eldest brother to go not just for the cart, but to show my family that I had backing. She remembered my parents, the way they had traded me away like a piece of meat. They were cold, greedy people, and she wasn't going to let them see me weak. Mother Rin looked at me with a heavy sigh. She told me that being a daughter-in-law to a family like theirs was better than the life I would have had otherwise. She promised that once Rongchong's leg healed, he would accompany me back to my village. She defended him, saying he might be simple, but he was strong, kind-hearted, and obedient. He wasn't the monster the rumors made him out to be. I nodded quickly, agreeing with every word she said. I returned to our small room and saw something that took my breath away. Mother Rin had taken the floral fabric she bought and turned it into a brand new outfit. It was folded neatly at the foot of the bed. I reached out and touched the soft material. I had never owned new clothes before, let alone something this beautiful. The bright red floral pattern felt like a dream. That night, I was sleeping soundly when I felt a strange movement near the bed. I woke up with a start. My simple husband was limping around the bed frame, walking in circles over and over again. Sweat was pouring down his forehead, but he wouldn't stop. I jumped up and grabbed a towel to wipe his face, pulling him back toward the bed. Wife, he panted, his eyes urgent. I'm going back to your home with you tomorrow. I can drive the ox cart. I'll do it. My heart swelled with emotion. People called him a fool, but to me, he was a real man. He cared for me more than anyone ever had. Seeing him struggle to walk just to prove he could protect me made my chest ache. I didn't want him to suffer. I remembered Mother Wren's warning and spoke to him in my softest voice. You need to stay home and rest your leg, I whispered. I'll go to the Song family and come right back. Be good for me. My voice seemed to soothe him. Rongchang finally stopped being stubborn, though he insisted on consummating our marriage again before sleeping. To him, that just meant holding me as tightly as he could until he drifted off. When the sun rose, I looked at the new clothes again. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to put them on. Mother Wren's stitching was perfect. The seams were even, and the fabric laid flat against my skin. It fit me perfectly. I put on the new embroidered shoes my sister-in-law had given me, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. I tied my hair up into a neat bun and turned around. Rongchang was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at me with his mouth hanging open. My cheeks burned hot under his gaze. Husband, I asked softly, do I look good in my new clothes? He couldn't take his eyes off me. It was like he was seeing a completely different person than the girl who arrived a few days ago. He nodded his head vigorously, a huge grin spreading across his face. Wife is so beautiful, he whispered. I felt a sweet warmth spread through my chest. I couldn't help but smile back at him. Even if the journey ahead was difficult, having him by my side made everything feel right.